Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goldie of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I would like to welcome you to the Raven's Call. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just kind of whatever strikes my fancy, sets my mind on fire at the time. Big UPG warning at the beginning of this episode, like all my other episodes. This is kind of how I see the world. I'm not a hardcore recon or a historical heathen, as they're sometimes referred to, and I'm not a neo-pagan fluffy bunny. I'm somewhere in the middle. I call myself a modern heathen in that I try to be informed by the past, but building something new for the future. So, take that for what you will. I'm very middle of the road as far as new growth and basis and research. So, I like a little bit of everything for a hashtag happy, healthy, whole heathen. So, before we jump into today's subject, big reminder, guys, hit the subscribe button down below, ding the bell, keep up to date on everything as it's coming out, and we'll be able to give you all the updates as they come through. Plus, it helps get these videos out in front of other people who might find them interesting. It's particularly interesting to see which of my videos break the 1,000 view mark, whereas others stick around like 200. It's very bizarre. Like Heathenry 101, obviously most clickbaity title that I could come up with, is right up there, over 6,000. And then, some of my others are, my intro and stuff like that have broken 1,000, but, I've got others that are like 200. Okay, whatever, cool. So I use these to be able to tell what you guys enjoy, what you like to see, what you like to hear, and what you want to learn more about. And so keep that going, keep the feedback coming, comments and all that stuff, so that I can help to tailor this channel towards something that might be, up your alley, something that you like and that, you enjoy. So, all right, we're going to jump into today's subject. Now, as you can see, I'm filming once again on location here in rural East Texas. We have a storm blowing in, and it may be here anytime now. I'm really hoping that I can get this filming done before the bottom drops out on me. Now, today's subject, I'm going back into the mailbox, as it were, and I'm pulling out something that was kind of tossed at me from a couple of different requests. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not really the primary person that should be doing this particular video because there's other people that are so much better suited for it. But then, they're not really doing videos right now, at least not like this. The one in particular that I think would be good at it is doing other stuff at the moment. So my point is that today is about staves. Now, staves or staffs, however you want to pronounce it, linguistic root, all of that stuff. The idea of the staff within heathenry is something that actually does go back to historical times. If you go back and look at the records and everything, there are notations, depictions, references, grave goods that show that particularly those that were thought to be practitioners of magical practices, particularly like seeresses, like the vulva, things like that, would carry a staff. Now for them particularly, it was a distaff, spinning staff, designed to help with the spinning of yarn. You can look that up if you want to get some better details on that. But you'll remember that within the lore, within the mythos, there are some distinct references to Frigga using a distaff as well. And the distaff, because it symbolizes that, it symbolizes a couple of things actually, but with the use of the distaff, there is within the seeress vulva side of things, you're looking at the presence of the kind of womanly arts, the creation, transformation of one thing into another through toil and hard work and direct manipulation with the hands. So this symbolism is very strong. Grave goods show through that metal distaffs were seen, particularly in what seemed to be more ritual-oriented burials of females with some ties to either the magical realm or, we're thought to be seen as vulvas and things like that. The metal ones survive because obviously they hold up better to the test of time. What I can tell from my readings and things like that indicate that there was probably wooden ones as well, but they were less likely to survive the ages and ravages of time simply because wood biodegrades, as is to be expected. So historically speaking, there's a lot of grounds for the carrying of a staff or distaff by an individual who's doing, prophetic or magical workings. Now, exactly what the purpose of the staff was, that's left up a little bit more to interpretation. This is where I like to kick over to somebody I consider to be more of a professional in the field, more of an expert in the field, and that is Kari Tauring. That's Karitauring. You'll find her stuff she's got some stuff up on YouTube here. I don't think she's done that in quite a while. I think she's been doing some online classroom stuff. She does a lot of Nordic studies and things like that up in the Minnesota area. And she's just an incredibly knowledgeable woman. I love her stuff. She's got CDs out that you can pick up and listen to her music because she does do singing and stav work. Because here's the thing. Kari goes through and she does historical research on Northern European dance, stav work, rhythm, all within a ritual and kind of cultic practice, as well as just individual, the representations of those cultures and the roles that they played. She's got a strong focus, I think, in the Icelandic Norse area, but she does research all throughout there. And her music is incredible. I love it. She does runic chants. She does all sorts of work. And she's got some videos out there that will go in and talk about the staff and kind of Slavic meditation, things like that. So I highly recommend checking those out. She's brilliant, she's good at what she does, and she is the best researched individual that I have found, period, hands down, with regards to vulva stav work. Now, stav work is not necessarily limited to vulva, but that seems to be where we have the kind of historical evidence and records leaning towards, okay? Other magic practitioners will frequently use a staff. The purpose behind it being that it creates a focal point. It allows for channeling of energies through a central point. As Kari will explain in her videos, the staff itself kind of represents the axis mundi, the pillar of the world, the connecting point between the parallel worlds on Yggdrasil. All the different 9 realms supported on Yggdrasil. So axis mundi is Yggdrasil. So when you sit and you do any kind of workings, this is your world tree. You can hear the jingles and jangles and stuff. I'll get to that here in a minute on mine. This is my personal staff, Sukenda, and I'll explain more on her in here in just a minute. But from a vulvic, I use that as a term, but from the standpoint of a vulva or seeress, it seems that the way Kari has done the research and everything and looked into it, the stav was quite probably used as a rhythm device as well, to allow for trance-like altered states of mind. There's a lot of support for the use of altered states of mind with regards to particularly prophetic or divinatory practices, any kind of magic practices at all. And ultimately speaking, when we're doing religious works, we're seeking an altered state of mind as well, because we have what we exist within the mundane, but the mundane doesn't necessarily perceive the sacred nearly as well. So what we're seeking is that sacred state of mind, that connection to the sacred world. And so that is, again, that altered state of mind. There's individuals that will use psychedelics for this purpose. A lot of people will use dance or trance, drumming, rhythm, and the stav is one of those rhythmic methods of attaining an altered state of mind, especially when it's accompanied with chant and song. Now, the way that she will do it, and she, again, go to her videos for the full explanation, because I'm just doing an extremely light primer here. She will give you the details on everything. But the staff itself creates the baseline thump. Now, mine has bells and everything on it, so you'll be able to hear that. Normally, you wouldn't be able to hear it on the dirt. But you create a rhythmic thump. And then you have a secondary stick called a tane. And that tane is used to strike the staff. So you got... You can't hear it. I'll use my ring. It gives that kind of offbeat, the syncopation that goes along with it. And so you can create some very intricate and very interesting rhythms, especially when you've got multiple people all staving together. They work in unison to create this kind of field of sound. And the sound reverberates off itself. Now, there's tons of things going on here when you're talking about the actuation of the vibrations in the air, the bringing of potential energy into active energy, and then channeling that active energy towards the works that you're doing. Wonderful stuff there. So the channeling of that potential energy into sound and then rechanneling that back, wonderful stuff. But you're also creating that space mentally for that altered state of mind to be able to obtain either the kind of magical sense that you're trying to reach or to reach the sacred. I've seen it used in both to quite some effect. Now, I have used mine as well to quite some effect, particularly rhythmic striking of the staff and chanting with regards to preparation for ritual. No, I'm not going to share specifically what I do or how I do it. Just know that that's something that's within my repertoire, simply because that's my cultic practice, and not everything goes up on the channel, guys. So, this is Sekenda. Like I said before, vulvas typically carried staves. There is some evidence we think that, there were some other individuals that did, but vulvas are where we have the main focus of the stave work, okay? I prefer to carry one because of the, again, focal point, the imagery of the tree, the rhythmic practice for altered state of mind. This is Sekenda. Sekenda is Icelandic, I believe, for seeker, wanderer, seeker. And that is the essence of my journey with Sekenda. She is my companion as I walk on my path for wisdom. I consider myself somewhat of an Odinsman. So, of course, I've got all of these trinkets. Now, the big thing about Sekenda is Sekenda was carved originally by a friend of mine up in the northern Midwest by the name of Falcor. Dude's awesome. And he did all the wood burning and everything on here, drilled the holes for all the trinkets and whatnot, and then gifted this to me ages ago. And I've loved it and have carried it ever since. And I have adorned it with all sorts of things that are to my liking. I've also done some extra runic wood burning all throughout for various and sundry purposes. As you can see, he's got the holes going up and down the shaft here as well. These are indeed goat hooves. They're for rhythmic purposes, and they're just goat toenails. And then various and sundry bells that are all holdovers. These are all holdovers from my days in the Ren Fair as a drummer for a belly dance troupe. And these were all kind of rhythmic stuff that I used literally on my costume. Like these and these all hung off of my boots as I would walk around. And I would also stomp my feet and everything, which gave some really cool musical elements to the drumming that I was doing. Now, I've incorporated those pieces into the staff because they are reflective of my journey up to this point. They were such a big part of my journey that I just had to have them in here. Plus, they serve the added bonus of the additional sound being added to the staff for strikes. And it's beautiful when I use it in ritual, because I will use this, and again, this is a modern thing. This isn't a historically supported thing, okay? This is a modern practice using the essence of metaphysics plus just general cultic aesthetic preferences. I do use my staff in ritual. Usually, I will use it to kind of help to set boundaries, like if I'm going through and marking and denoting the boundaries around my my vey or whatever ritual working area that I'm working with. Sometimes I will strike it into the ground and let it stand as a sentinel to mark the line, the boundary between outside of the well and inside the well. I will use it a lot during like wardings and things like that to help prepare the ritual space, and will, sorry, it's starting to rain, and it'll help to prepare the ritual space, and will give, I add that element of the kind of rhythm and sound into the process of setting that boundary and to establishing the parameters, the outer boundaries of my ritual space. And I'll use it for several other things as well, because I find that the accent of the striking to be very effective in a lot of ways within ritual and within meditation, things like that, especially with runic chants and whatnot. Now again, Kari's got the better information on runic work. Sorry, I'm having to clear a few things out because we're starting to rain and I need to get them in out of the rain into my pockets. But yes, Kari's got much better information on the use of staving as a meditational tool, of kind of the divinatory vulvic practices. This again is just a general primer because someone did request that I put this out there. The little baubles, of course, are all different things that I've picked up over the years, just mostly Thor's hammer is my little raven for Heathenry, little mirror on the back for a number of metaphysical purposes. And then, of course, I did the staining on her, and my little sayings on here. But this is Sekenda. This is my friend, my traveling companion, and she has been with me through thick and thin for years now, and she's an incredible companion. That's a strong thing, to be able to put a lot of energy into a ritual item that you carry between the mundane and the profane and the sacred, that channels a piece of you. I mean, this thing is uniquely attuned to me. It feels amazing when she's in my hand, and when I work with her in ritual, it's immensely powerful for me. So that's one way that I use stav work today. Now, I say that in that I use a stav for ritual purposes. But again, if you hear someone who talks about staving, usually they're talking about a practice much akin to what Kari teaches, which is the use of the staff and the tane in rhythmic percussion in order to accompany chant, song, things like that, for either cultural expression or for kind of divinatory altered states of mind, meditational type purposes. So that's kind of that. So this is an interesting area. It's something that you can get pretty deep into when you start talking about the different metaphysics behind the use of a staff. Again, I don't know how deep I'm going to go into that on the channel because a lot of this is my personal practice and my personal belief, and I don't necessarily want to share all of that with everybody out there. Like I've said, it's okay to be insular sometimes. You've got to protect your own cultic practice. You can't necessarily put everything out there. Even though I do like to teach you guys and to encourage you to learn and to grow, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to share every little nuance of what I do with everybody in the world. So that's beside the point. I do like to share and teach as best I can. And the best way that I can teach you on the stuff is to point you to someone who is actually better at it than I am. So please, go look up Kari Tauring. Again, that's Karitauring. You find her all over the web. She does some amazing work. The woman is a legit vulva. I have watched her do her work. She's actually helped to influence and inform my understanding of the term vulva and the role of a vulva in the modern era and what they could possibly do. Because in the olden days, vulva would travel from village to village, tribe to tribe. Usually they were fairly unaffiliated, and they would come in and be like traveling medicine women after a fashion, in that but instead of doing like any kind of healing stuff, what they were doing is coming in, reading the weird of a society, doing some fortune telling divinatory work for the leader of that particular tribe or group, and they would help to heal spiritual wounds, as it were. They would help to help them make decisions on major things like, crops and whatnot, wherein a divinatory influence might be of benefit. And so that's a really cool thing. It's a wonderful thing, but it's not necessarily a thing in the modern day. The modern application of the vulva, the role that a vulva could take in the modern day, is kind of a different thing. They're fascinating because the divinatory practices still work. I still, especially on a tribal level, I still look to kind of the more vulva-oriented women that I know in order to get their insights and read on things. And I take that very much into account when leading my tribe, because only a fool doesn't listen to a vulva when she speaks. What you do with it is up to you, but at least listen and hear what she has to say and take it to heart. they have the knowing of things, and it's yes, it's important. So I definitely use that in the modern day, but there's also an added element of vulvas as teachers now, and that's an interesting thing because it's almost not enough anymore to be able to say, oh yes, she does divinatory practice, because the world isn't built around divinatory practices anymore. They're not as much a piece of our society. They're not as much a piece of our world. And so on an individual cultic level, yeah, sure, they're involved, they're there. So there's a place, tribe to tribe, for vulvas to come and do their thing. But as far as being able to, really embrace and do a full vulva lifestyle, it's a bit more difficult in the modern era, because westernized society, modern westernized society, doesn't embrace that anymore. So there's the role of teacher and of researcher and of chronicler of history and cultural practices. That's a very strong thing for modern vulvas, and I like to see them embrace that. It's kind of a mix of vulva and bard after a fashion, much akin to how a lot of Godhis in the modern era are also doing a lot of teaching, because it's an oral tradition and we're the ones that have the knowledge, and we try to pass it on, we try to share. It's just kind of a neat thing, and it's interesting to watch as I trip up over my words. It's interesting to watch because this is something that would naturally have been a piece of our ancestors' lives. Different tribes would have their methods of teaching, their methods of perpetuating tradition and thew, and this is a method of that we are rediscovering in the modern day. We're having to redo the research on it, and then the masters are having to teach those that want to learn. And of course, there's still those that, like with the old practices in olden days, there are those on the outside looking in who would be like, well, that's a bunch of hooey, that's a bunch of hokum, they don't know what they're talking about. And then there's those that are like, no, they really do know what they're talking about. I've watched them work, and I've seen the effects. And I have seen the effects on some vulvas doing their work, and it's incredible. So I'm a hardcore believer. So that's kind of, if you're going to study staves, it's important to study the vulva a little bit, because that is the biggest tie in heathenry, in as far as the olden practices and what we have surviving in the lore and the research and the digs, the archaeological digs and whatnot. That's the biggest tie that we have. And anything else that we have as far as like the other practitioners using staves and whatnot, most of that is stuff that's influenced by later information, and it's kind of dodgy at best. And again, a lot of this wasn't written down back in the day, so we're having to piece through and guess at the use of certain items as they are represented within grave goods and things like that. The distaff there could be for vulva type practices, divinatory practices, magical practices, or it could just simply be a symbol of her status within the home, matronly duties, things like that. You have to remember, gender roles were defined a little bit differently back then than they are now, born out of necessity and just culture in general. And so you have to look at things through their eyes at the time too, in order to be able to understand what it is you're looking at. So staff work is something that's a bit of an enigma. We have definite indications of the use of staff with vulvic practices, depictions of it, mentions of it. I mean, there's stuff out there to support the use of the staff in magical workings, at least within that paradigm. It does not take much to extrapolate it beyond that point into other practices, such as the work a Godhi might do in the use of a staff. And this is something that crosses cultures. I mean, if you look at a bunch of different cultures, the use of a staff by a priest class, by the sorcerer or magician class, by divinatory practitioners, the staves are always there. They take different forms, they have different purposes. Sometimes, for the most part, that axis mundi kind of focal point channeling avenue, that's pretty standard. You get down to what it's made out of, etc., etc., etc. You can get pretty exacting on this depending on where you are in the metaphysics and the spirituality elements and whatnot. So, yeah. Staves. It's a cool thing. It's an interesting thing. And like I said, I've been asked multiple times online to talk about stave work. And this is kind of what I'm willing to put out there. We'll see how it goes. If you guys are interested, I may talk about it a little bit more. But if I do, you're going to have to give me a little bit of time, because I'm definitely going to go and consult Kari before I go out and do a whole lot of anything with regards to stave work. Because while I may be an accomplished percussionist from elements of my past life, she's the vulva. I'm just a goalie. I don't, yeah, that's her wheelhouse, and I definitely want to lean towards her on her side of things. So, thank you guys. If you've got any questions, feel free to hit me up. Feel free to share stories that you might have, pictures of your own staves if you've created some. Give us a look. Jump on the Word Weaver Productions community site and jump in there and start a conversation. Say, hey, this is the staff that I've been working with, or instead of staves, I like to use this, because the kind of focal tool thing transitions. It doesn't just have to be a stave. It can be a lot of things. But I know a lot of people out there have theirs, and they're dying to show them off because they're quite proud of them, and they should be, because they are definitely a representation of the individual's personality. And they definitely take on a lot of that person's energy, and they are a piece of them. So it's kind of neat. I love to see them if you're willing to share them. So jump up there on the Word Weaver Productions community page, group, and share it out. Okay? So in the meantime, thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm not sure how many more of these we'll do out here, but I kind of like shooting out here in the wild. Background noise is a thing, but I kind of enjoy being outside and in my woods. So we'll expect to see it pop up from time to time. But we will do some stuff back from the studio, because there's some things that I just need the peace and quiet for in the controlled environment. And plus, that's where I am. Things have been absolutely stupid at work lately, so hence the filming out here. So with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. Thank you all again. Hail to you all. May your hearth fires burn bright. All right, we are going to try and pull one out of the old viewer request box. At least we're going to attempt to. Try and get my hoodie semi-presentable for the show. Maybe. It's been absolutely nuts up at work and trying to fulfill my obligations at home and all this other stuff. It's kind of crazy. So I haven't had any time at all to film, and I'm trying to keep things up so that I don't have to take weeks off and stuff like that. But I don't know, I may have to here in the near future take a couple of weeks off and build up some back stock. Things have been kind of crazy, so I'm just I don't know, we'll see. Options, we'll see. So anyway, enough background stuff. I really hope, you'll have already watched the video by now, so you'll know whether or not this is just too freaking loud, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna try, okay? If it's too loud, then it's too loud, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we'll play with it. So, alright. Man, we were clearing land and everything yesterday. I'm all kinds of stove up today. I don't have any. Hurting. All right, so we are live we're going to do the style thing, obviously. And we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. A little sore today, but that's okay. It's all good. I'm really hoping that this wind is not knocking the microphone out. So we're going to see here in a little bit, and hopefully I can make this work. But because they were such an important part of my journey up to this point, I have incorporated them. Slow down. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm sitting here trying to talk about it, and I'm like tripping over myself because I'm watching the storm roll, and I'm like, storm's coming. Not that I care about the storm. I'm not like scared of storms or anything. It's just I really don't want to be standing out here when the bottom opens up. You know what I mean? Again, it's extra stout to do without. All right. I'm such a goon. All right, we're back in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam.